on behalf of EMA and particularly Kishan Gordhan Das Gupta, EMA Center for Capital Markets and Investor Education, I have pleasure in welcoming all of you to this webinar on learnings from past decade in Indian equities by a very learned speaker, Mr. Vishrut C. Pathak, who is the founder and director of Pi Square Investment. I want to ask Vishrut one thing. What is the value of Pi Square? And if it was Pi compound, what would it have been? These lighter moments, let me also introduce the speaker of today to many people who may not know him. My association with his family runs several decades. I knew his mother, then his father, and now I know him. Vishnu has over 18 years of investment management experience. He has been working for 10 years with various financial firms in New York, founded Pi Square Investment in January 2011. Pi Square Advisors for the last 10 years. He has been Vice President, High Net Worth Incorporated for 6 years. He has had very marquee institutional clients like Abbott, Merrill Lynch, Morgan Stanley, etc. He has been senior analyst in financial research from FinGlobe, Princeton, IT Hospitality, New York for more than 3 years. He has been MBA International Finance from St. John's University in 2001 and various other things. Presently, he is also a mentor at EDI under Cradle platform. With this brief introduction of Vishrut Pathak, who I think is extremely learned, well-researched person, he will enlighten us on the learnings from the equity markets in India, mainly and perhaps globally in the last 1 decade. As we have seen, the markets have grown in size over the last so many years. They have become volatile, but they have given extremely good returns to the long-term investors, as well as lot of short-term opportunities for those who can stomach the volatility in the indices. Because nowadays, so many factors affect the performance of Indian equities on a day-to-day basis, on an hour-to-hour basis, because of the heavy volumes in the derivatives market, mainly the options market. So, of course, for many investors, it has gives so many times an opportunity to enter into the market at lower levels. For traders, it's a different cup of tea. This lecture series is coming under the aegis of Kishan Gordhan Das Gupta, EM Center for Capital Markets and Investor Education. Many of you may know that Mr. Gupta's father, Gordhan Das Gupta, was a pioneer investor in the Ahmedabad Stock Exchange. At one stage, he had a very large holding in Tata Steel, even more than the Tatas. So you can see the ingrained investment philosophy which the family has had over the number of years. With this brief introduction of the speaker, of the center, and the present day scenario, I would now hand over the proceedings to Mr. Vishrut Pathak, who can enlighten us on the learnings of the past decade from the Indian equities market. Vishrut, all yours.
Thank you very much, Himal, for those kind words. Very nice of you. Good evening, everyone. Thank you very much for joining into this web conference. And I would like to specially thank AMA to take this effort to keep the learnings alive, even during the COVID and the Zoom era. I think when the COVID hit last year, it was kind of impossible to think that the way internet and the Zoom and everything will take over, people will still be part of the conference and discussion and the learning process. So kudos to AMA for taking that effort to make sure people are constantly learning and constantly out there. If I can just share my screen now. So the theme for us today is what happened over a period of last decade in Indian markets, right? I think there are too many discussions already happened over long-term investing, short-term, investor versus trader, and many more to come. I think specifically coming from Gujarat, which is kind of a Makkah of equity markets in India. I mean the Dalal Street is named after Gujarati, and the Bombay market, as they say that more than 2/3 of the brokers used to be a Gujarati community. So coming specifically from that, I think it's an interesting time for all of us. What our theme today is that what happened in Indian markets last decade, and as an investor, what we learned. It's been exactly 10 years for Pi Square. We completed in January 10 years, so it's a great time for us. But in that 10 years, let's just look at what exactly happened in Indian markets, right? So there has been tremendous volatility. Narendra Modi got elected, our Prime Minister Narendra Modi ji got elected in 2014. We had demonetization in 2016. We had an IL&FS crisis in 18, and COVID crash that came in 2020. But if you're a long-term investor and if you were invested for 10 years, the index level, the Nifty, which is the 50 largest companies in India, the return was somewhere about 8.8% CAGR. While the Nifty 500, which is a broader index, provided about 8.9%. Nifty small cap was somewhere about 5.6% CAGR. Now, CAGR is a cumulative annual growth, right? So if you mix it up, your money almost gave you 133% over a period of 10 years. Mid caps give you 135%, and small cap was somewhere about in between. Now, again, the index is just one indicator to compare the portfolio. But as an investor, I come from the markets, or I come from the thought process where we do believe that it's not impossible to outperform the markets. If you're a long-term investor and if you stay invested, what kind of value creation you can create, and you will be able to outperform the markets very well. If we compare as an asset class, the Nifty provided about 8.8% as a returns. The real estate, again, this is not your traditional real estate, but this is organized real estate. Real estate index as a return has given 8.6%. The gold has given you 7.2, while the GSEC, which is the bond index in India, has given you 6.7. So this was a little bit underperforming decade for Indian equities, right? The year before, the decade before, which was 2000 to 2010, the returns for Indian equity was as high as 17 to 18%. So the expectation for Indian investor was quite high. Now, if you would have done plain vanilla investing into markets or the at index level, these were your returns. But this is where we a little bit disagree with the markets. And we do believe that opportunities always knock on your door. And as an investor, it's our job to kind of capture what's in front of you and what is going to be there in next decade. Now, if you look at what Nifty or Indian market was 10 years back, it was primarily driven by financial services and oil and gas sector, which was more commodity and oil and gas, ONGC kind of the names. If you look at now 2020, that oil and gas sector from 19% has gone to 14%, and financial service sector has seen the massive jump from 26% to 38%. So today, as an equity market, the 1/3 of the market return comes from the financial service industry. Information technology, if you now look at 2000, back in 2000, this sector didn't even exist. 2010, this sector almost took it to 14%. That is growing right now really rapidly, and it's at 16%. And our expectation is that by 2030, when we'll be looking at these numbers, the information technology should be at par with financial services, or it might even take over the financial services. Now, this is the theme for our decade analysis. So when we completed 10 years in India, we said, let's look at the top 20 best performing stocks in India. And then let's look at the worst performing 20 stocks in India. This will not include any new IPOs or new players that got listed, but people who were there and people who gave you 10 years. So if you look at someone like Bajaj Finance, the money has gone 100x. So your CAGR, annual return on Bajaj Finance, comes to almost 60%. The Balkrishna, the Bajaj Finserv, the Berger Paint. So the list is pretty simple out there, that these are the top 20 names. Now, even if you had 4 or 5 names out of this in your portfolio, I can assure you your return was somewhere about 18 to 20% CAGR, which was way better than the bank deposits or way better than your traditional thought process. And again, what one should avoid, right? So as we said in investment world, that if you avoid losers smartly, winners will take care of itself. So I think that process is really important for us to understand that what fails in investing, what really didn't work. We have some of the well-known names like Syntex Industries, Quality, which was a large dairy and ice cream product. We have Reliance Power, Reliance Capital, Reliance Naval. So the whole Anil Ambani side of the Reliance, where the 98-99% of the capital has been evaporated for most of the investors. The format for the presentation today is what we'll go through 3 or 4 case studies, which are the big winners. And we'll try to see, is there a pattern as an investor that we can catch for the next coming decade as an investor, right? So these are top 20 performers for year. And for the financial savvy people, I think it's easy to understand what's up there. But I will just kind of put the kind of method to these numbers. So when we look at here, this is the CAGR performance for 10 years. That what was explained, that what annual return for these investments been, what the market cap was back in 2010, and what the market cap now in 2020 end. So something like Bajaj Finance, the 2,500 crore market cap has gone to 3 lakh crore market cap. The return, your money is 124x. So if you randomly ended up putting 10 lakh rupees into Bajaj Finance and you didn't touch all these years, I think you can do the math. It would have done wonders for you. And this does not include dividends. This does not include any QIPs where you might have put an extra money. These are pure, simple buy and hold strategy. So what we saw for all these companies, all the 10 kind of 20 names out there, we said, let's look at the trend for us. Is there something that we kind of commonly kind of see that as a trend? So what we saw was that all these companies on an average, the sales growth was much faster than the GDP plus inflation in India. So let's say that your GDP in our India for last decade was about 6.5%. The inflation was about 5%. So overall, any company should have grown about 11-12% to match the GDP plus inflation. These guys have almost posted the growth of 17%. Now, if you look at someone like Bajaj Finance or FinServ or even Mindtree or Kotak Mahindra Bank, they've done phenomenally well at a top line. Another trend that you can clearly look at is the PAT, which is the profitability growth for last 10 years. The last 10-year profitability growth annualized for Bajaj Finance has been 50%. Cholamandalam is 60%. So every 2 years, your profit is growing 120%. The average profit growth for these 20 companies comes to about 24%. The third criteria that comes very common for these guys is that the return on capital employed is really high. Now, for a kind of a naive investor or a new school guy, what is the return on capital employed, right? So think it very on a layman language that when you say that I'm putting a new capex or a new plant, my payback period is 5 years. That means you doubling up your money in 5 years. Your return on capital employed for that kind of 5-year period, we should come somewhere about 18-17% CAGR, right? So traditionally, all good entrepreneurs make sure that their money doubles every 4 to 5 years. So if you look at return on capital employed average for these kind of the industries, it came to about 26.9%, which is phenomenally high. Now that also includes some of the retail industry or a financial industry where your return on capital employed is traditionally low. Another amazing thing that we've seen is that average debt equity is usually very low for these guys. So these people love using the operating cash flow instead of leveraging heavily. Now you see the average high here, but that's mainly because of the banking industry. If you take the banking names out, your Eicher Motors, your Abbott, your Page Industries, your Coforge, Honeywell, none of these guys have any debt on the balance sheet. So debt equity is your total debt divided by the total equity. So if promoter has his own $1 billion, how much he is leveraging against it? So a good promoter or a sign of a good promoter is that, he's not going to leverage heavily and he's going to play safe and invest the capital consistently high. One myth for Indian investor that I would like to mention here is that we love buying cheap, or we believe that cheaper PE means a great investment. So if you look at the average PE of these investments last 10 years, the average PE comes to 35.8, which is phenomenally high, right? I think we learned in the school or the college finance books traditionally that, I would love to buy 5 PE, 7 PE stocks and I will do great over a period of long term. That actually doesn't work in India. What we've learned in India is that if it's a good company why should it be cheap? So that's in a developed market we call it the efficient market theory. So markets are pretty efficient in that sense that if you're gonna buy an apartment in kind of Lower Parel compared to an apartment in Andheri, you're not gonna find it cheaper property, right? Because you're always gonna have like a Walkeshwar or Lower Parel more expensive than the suburbs. So when you go out to make an investment in Kotak Mahindra Bank or HDFC Bank, they're not going to come cheaper than your RBL Bank or DCB Bank. So if you're a great trader and you can really time the market and you can pick it up from the bottom and get out, it's great. But what we've learned in India is that if you stick to quality, if you go to the MNCs and great companies and you don't try to say, oh, markets are expensive, it has gone up, it's gone down. If you end up holding it for longer term, it's actually possible to make your money go 10x, 12x, 15x, 20x. So that is kind of the basic theme. This is just a pictorial presentation of what sectors. So on an average, if you look at top 4 sectors, the majority of the money has been made through banking, automobile, healthcare, and chemicals, and obviously consumer durables. But that doesn't prove any guarantee. There is no trend that we saw that if you pick ABC sector, your chances of success is higher. So this is completely random and there is no kind of thought process there. Now we just briefly looked at what happened with the really loss-making companies or the company where we end up losing capital. So I remember one incident being an advisor. I remember one of the clients from Bombay had called me when the Kingfisher airline, the prices had gone to 6 rupees. And he'd called me saying, sir, let's just put at least 1 crore in this. It's down to 6 rupees. Kitna loss kar sakte hain? And I had to tell him that loss can be 1 crore. And I think most of the retail investors go into that notion that 100 rupees stock comes to 6 rupees. It can't go below this. But remember that 1,000 rupee stock going to 500 is a 50% loss. And a 6 rupee stock going to 3 rupees is also 50% loss. So don't try to generalize investment based on the price and 52-week high lows and all. Stick to quality. Now, if you look at these column, right, it's on an average how much interest cost you pay on EBITDA. Most of these companies couldn't even pay, their EBITDA wasn't even sufficient to pay their interest cost. So the only option for these guys was bankruptcy. So as an investor, I think what we've learned in India is that people who can't handle leverage well, you'll always have examples like Adani Power and some of the guys like SRF, which were highly leveraged. So those are literally, I would say, 5% of the market where they've been successful. I would say 90% of the people who really leverage tend to fail heavily. So almost 93% to 95% of your wealth eroded. And that's where your long-term hypothesis didn't work. So you couldn't have said that I picked up Quality or JP Infratech or Reliance Power and I'm a long-term investor, it will come back. So you have to that way keep looking at the financials and you have to study what's happening around you. If you just blindly put in a loss-making company and expect it to turn around, I don't think that unless you're a magician or a god, I don't think it's going to work in your favor. So there is a trend here. If you look at the loss-making or loser segment in India, very openly, it comes from infrastructure, power, realty, and telecom kind of sector. So what warning we would like to say is that when the Indian budget comes out and the government says that we're going to spend X trillion in infrastructure in next 10 years, and suddenly all the infra and power companies shoot up 100%, trust me, their time to book profits, not to take the time to entry. These are such cyclical industry. They're so high capex industries. It's really difficult for an investor to get in at the right time and get out. So according to us, avoid these industries or cyclical industries where they do well for 2-3 years and then suddenly there is a 50%, 70% wealth erosion. We would love to look at the investment where we don't have to kind of reinvent the wheel and look at there every 3 years, 5 years. So these are the 4 case studies for our investors today. So a question that one of my team member asked right away saying, sir, the best performing stock was a Bajaj Finance. Why are we not taking Bajaj Finance as a case study and Bajaj Finserv? The real reason here is that Bajaj Finserv was our first investment in 2010. So we've actually picked up Bajaj Finserv at 500 rupees. Today the price is at 10,000. We're still holding every share. We've bought it at 1,800. We bought it at 2,000. We bought it at 3,000. At every level, a good company, we've been able to buy it. And we've today even in holding it 10,000. So Bajaj Finserv is more of an holding company. where they hold 54% of finance, 74% of the insurance company, and Bajaj Allianz General Insurance, they have 74%. This has been the journey of 10 years for Bajaj Finserv. The asset, which is mainly Bajaj Finance as a holding company, has gone from 9,500 crore to 1,47,000 crore. So their asset has grown at 32% CAGR in 10 years. Now, a traditional guy will ask, like, how do I know? I mean, I don't get a chance to read the annual reports. I'm not a financially savvy guy who print out the whole, financial statements and balance sheets and try to understand everything. I think very simple metrics. Just make sure that you put revenues, profitabilities, and margins on a 10-year metrics. Look at it, what's happening in this company, not by the price, not by the charts, not by what market does, not by what finance minister says, but look at what companies doing in terms of profitability, what companies doing in terms of revenue, right? So even in 2011, when we kind of started in India, the market cap, if you look at, from 4,800 had already gone to 7,500. So practically your market cap had doubled already. When retail investor usually looks at this, the famous line is, I will wait for the correction. Thoda niche aane do. I'll wait for the crack. And then when correction comes, I'll buy it. Usually what happens is when the correction comes, most of the investors want to wait for more and more and more. So the greed and fear are the common synonym. We kind of believe that they are not for the qualified investor. So we started investing at about 550 level in Bajaj Finserv. Today, clearly the price here is the crash price, which is 4,500. Today the price is 10,000. So clearly when this next March comes, your CAGR will be much higher. But even at that crash level, our annualized return on the Bajaj Finserv from the original is about 30% CAGR. Some of the clients for us joined us in 13 and 14, where the prices had already gone to 1,000. For them, the CAGR is a trailing CAGR rate. If you look at it, the trailing CAGR for them is about 27-28%. So a good investment, good company will continue to do well. Don't try to judge it by what it was and what it can be. Keep your eyes on the profitability. Now, if you look at the return on capital employed or return on equity, this was like a bellwether, right? That return on equity was consistently above 20 or 30, which is our kind of the threshold. And if you look at the EPS growth, which is a trailing EPS growth CAGR, you will see that a book value and EPS growth usually will be very close to your market cap growth. So this is our Bajaj Finserv, where we've been lucky enough, we've been smart enough, we've been fortunate enough to be there to see that the valuations were dirt cheap. So I think if you look at the first 5 years, the valuation was as low as 7-8 PE. So Indian markets were dirt cheap till 2014, right? So the opportunities were dime a dozen, but that doesn't mean you missed the opportunity. Even at 13 PE at a 1,400 crore market, the 22,000 crore market cap, you've still gone to almost 1,40,000 crore today. So you've still done your 7x money in 6-7 years. Now, 10 years back, I think everyone was in SBI. SBI was the largest financial institution in India. So we're just comparing that if you were in SBI as a long-term investor, your 281 rupees price is 275. Your CAGR comes to minus 0.2. And if you understood the Bajaj Finserv story well, in terms of the insurance and consumer finance, clearly you made almost 30x, 40x money for you compared to minus 0.2 for SBI. So you can pick your winners. And every start of the decade, this is the study we do for all the industries, and we want to look at it. The second case study we want to present today is Britannia. So about 10 years back, Britannia was competing neck to neck with ITC in consumer. The Parle-G had a dominant market, Nestle, HUL, these were the large players. Britannia was the new entrant, and primarily they were like a biscuit company. And Britannia was slowly getting into dairy markets, and it was right around you, right? We've been buying Britannia Bon biscuits and Britannia Marie biscuits and things like that. In next 10 years, what has happened is that Britannia has captured 57% of the premium biscuit market. India was a very low-key kind of a 5 rupee, 10 rupee biscuit market, and no one thought that your high-end chocolate biscuits and your high-end flavored biscuits will grow faster than these markets. Britannia captured complete that market share. ITC has been catching up to that. And what they did was that they went to direct retailers at the rural market and urban and semi-urban market. So from 7.4% penetration, they've gone almost to 22% penetration in India in last 7 years. Again, simple 10-year metrics. So Britannia, I know that it's impossible to believe now, but the Britannia was a practically 3,800 crore company back in the day. Anyone who was kind of a shopper, I know that as a man, we don't have the right to go to or we usually don't go to the market and buy the biscuits ourselves and all. But when we look at these products around us, there is a very famous investor called Peter Lynch. And he always said that, I would rather go to the mall or a shopping space and see what people buy. And that gives me the idea of my next investment rather than looking at the financial journals and all that. So Britannia kind of fit into that segment, that if you were kind of a ground research guy, and if you would have realized what's happening at a ground level, the Britannia would have been very idle, simple kind of the segment for you. Now, the beauty with this investment is that revenue annualized growth has only been 12% for them, but profitability growth, which is the EPS growth for them, has been 30%. That's because the PAT margin, which is the profit after tax margin, these great companies usually expand it much faster than the revenue, right? Book value has grown 30%, which is, as I said, will match usually very close to the market cap. So 160 rupees stock 10 years back, today is trading at 3,000 rupee. So again, it's a pure 20x story for you in 10 years. And these are no-brainer, right? So these all had a crash. But if you look at even in 2014 or 2018, the demonetization, none of that impacted these stories. So you don't have to time these stocks saying it went up too much, it went too down and all that stuff. I think let good investments play out its own. And I think, so this is again comparison with the ITC for last 10 years. So the Britannia, again, at 205 rupees has gone to 3,500 rupees, which is 33% CAGR. And ITC, if you look at it, which was the best, largest consumption story, has gone to 6% CAGR last 10 years. Next case study for us is the white goods segment, which is Havells India. Again, Havells is a well-known brand. You've seen the fans, you've seen the water heaters, you've seen the lighting and switching. So what they've done is they've constantly acquired new brands, right? They bought Lloyd to enter the AC market. They got into the water purifier. So there is constant margin expansion you see and the new products coming in. So when you're sitting in 2010, it's impossible for you to judge that they will be doing so well in the cables and they'll be doing so well in the new product segment. But if you create a simple metrics, as I said, to keep an eye on the revenue, profitability, margins, return on capital employed and your debt equity, I think the life is pretty sorted. And that's why we say that don't use the emotions, let the numbers speak itself. So if you look at Havells, the CAGR been about 23%. Revenue's only been gone up 6% because of the margin expansion. The profit growth been 26%. And again, the book value, as I said, will be very close to your market cap. It's about 26% growth. 10 years, I think the whole white goods segment has done well. Voltas was one of the largest player. They've also done well. But again, if you pick your winners well, compared to 14% CAGR, you would have picked the 28% CAGR story in 10 years. Next one on the list is the Page Industries, which is one of the largest player within the leisure wear. They have exclusivity with the jockeys to kind of sell products here. So interesting story here is that they don't own the brand. They are the distributor and the exclusive brand here. When they launched the product, everyone laughed at them and market were really unorganized. For people to realize that this segment, they will capture the organized segment will be very different. Now, this is what I wanted to mention here, that even if you missed the bus in 2010, the market cap had already kind of doubled. Even from that level, market cap again doubled. So even if you would have entered in FY12, right, at 3,000 crore market cap, your trailing CAGR still comes to almost 25-26%. So you would have not made 36%, but even from 2013 level, you would have made 26%. And that is what we want to kind of mention, that, you have to pick your winners. You have to keep an eye on the profitability and financial statements of the company. And if you stick to these companies, you will do tremendously well. Now, if you look at last 2-3 years in terms of the revenue and in terms of the profitability, EPS growth, clearly there is a little bit slowdown. So when somebody is trying to pick the next generation company, our thought process or our advice is that pick the next generation companies. Doesn't mean this is a wrong company or take an exit or any of that sort. But again, Page Industries is a clear example. Now, there was no benchmark or a comparison for us. So what we've done here is we've compared the Page Industry case study of last 10 years with Nifty 500. So Nifty 500 has gone up by 8.8%. Again, that's your traditional mutual funds have given you 9.5, 9.7%. But if you pick your winners right, a 1500 rupee stock has today been trading at 30,000. Now, there are tons of case study like MRF and, Domino's Pizza, which is Jubilant guys. So there are tons and tons of these guys that have created massive wealth. But obviously, our criteria were that you have to be part of the CNX 500 10 years back, and you still have to be part of the CNX 500 now. So what we will do is we have about last 15 minutes left. So we will take the next section where I've kind of summarized key learnings from the decade. These are simple one-liners. And I think then we'll open the floor for question and answers. So here, these are my simple learning that I've learned as a fund manager, as an investor in India, which might be helpful for all of you and retail investors as well. So I think the line for us at a Pi Square is that, leave penny for traders, focus on the pounds. So there are a lot of people who love making 2%, 5%, 10%, and then they end up losing 8%, 10%, 7% also. So our job as an investor is to create long-term, right? The focus for us is long-term wealth creation. So believe in the long-term story, believing in the industry. If you would have bought Britannia even 40 years back, even at the independence of 1947, I think the market cap of Britannia was somewhere about 130 crore. So people who've been holding it even for last 70 years have created unprecedented wealth. So if you would have bought a good company, even I actually have personally know a client who put money about 15 years back in Marico, and today the dividend yield on Marico is higher than his total capital that he had invested. So you can't create that kind of wealth by going in and coming out of the equity markets. The equity markets are meant to be volatile. Use that volatility for your advantage rather than trying to time the market. This is our thought process again. Focus on 4 P's. The 4 P's are promoters. So your promoter has to be clean. It has to be well driven. The entrepreneur matters a lot. So till Azim Premji came, the Wipro was kind of a ghee company or a FMCG company. One guy came in and changed the perception of a company, and today is, again, in newspapers, if you saw in last couple of days, from less than 200 crore company, they are now buying company worth $1 billion in UK. So promoter matters a lot. We do a lot of due diligence. Our live example from Ahmedabad, someone like Bhadresh Bhai in AI engineering, someone like Achal Bhai in Symphony. These guys have created tremendous wealth for investors in last 15, 20 years. And you can't put enough emphasis on the integrity of the promoter. So we believe that the promoter is the guy who's going to drive your car. So I don't think you want to give your car to a driver who doesn't have a driving license, nor who doesn't know how to drive, right? The second criteria is the product. So keep a constant eye out there in terms of what new products and services are launched. Astral Poly didn't qualify here for this because it was not part of the S&P 500 back then. But again, Ahmedabad-based company, the market cap 10 years back was 300 crore. Today, the market cap is 36,000 crore, right? So in 11 years, they've given you 120x of your money. And the simple product was that they came into innovative product and they had CPVC and PVC pipes in bathroom fitting. The advertisements within the Dabango, everybody knows. So these products and these advertising is right in front of you. The ideas is right in front of you. You need a little bit financial kind of understanding to invest in these companies. So keep an eye. My best investment that I've made in my life is Apple in US. The day iPhone was launched, from that point, the Apple has gone up about 45x in dollar terms. So rupee was 42 back then. Today, rupee is 74. So in rupee terms, your investment has gone up about, I would say, 80x, 90x. So it's a tremendous kind of the return that we've created. Third is profit. That, what we believe, if you're not profitable, what value addition do you have? We're not turnaround specialists. I don't think you also have the understanding. There are some private equity, let them do the job, getting into that loss-making company and turn around. We're not into that segment. So we actually believe in companies that are profitable and companies who knows how to reinvest that profit. The fourth is the price. So price is, in a way, valuations or what kind of price you're looking at. if you would have invested in L&T when they were not growing, and if there was no valuations up on the floor, you would have not made money. The previous decade, L&T would have made 20x your money. So the last decade's great investment doesn't mean next decade's great investment. This is the simple line that I think we're Gujaratis, Sindhis, and Marwadis are very good at with this. You can't go broke, right, if you don't have a debt. So for a company to kind of, it's impossible unless you're genius, not impossible. It's almost impossible for you to go bankrupt if there is no debt on the balance sheet. Another simple point that we believe is watch out for the market and industry cycles. Every cycle provides you new opportunity. So when the COVID came, right, I think you can clearly see the cycles for pharmaceuticals, API, and chemical industry turned completely favorable. When the World War II happened, right, there was a massive crisis, and everybody looked at it more like a crisis. Let's be scared, save money. The smartest investors started investing heavily into defense company, railroad companies, and infrastructure companies. The 99.com bubble, same thing was for the e-commerce and the tech companies. I think your Yahoos and Apples and Amazons were all created from that tech bubble burst. So when the crisis come, look at that as an opportunity or industry cycle. That's the key thing. There is very much discussion in terms of growth investing versus value investing. There is also recent e-newsletter written by a very famous investor called Howard Marks that everyone I would recommend that they read. My point learning here is that, pick your battle wisely. We as a Pi Square, as a team, we're a growth investor. We don't mind paying heavy valuation when the companies are growing. And recent year, we've seen that in names like Apple or India Mart, or, in names like Havells, where if profitability grows 40% CAGR, investors will follow you, whatever the valuation is. Again, this is Peter Lynch concept that I've learned in India, that India's consumer behavior can tell you more in terms of the market sentiment than the brokerage report, right? So in US, when I want to invest in tech companies, I still ask my daughter, what new platforms or what new social platforms or what new music they listen to. And it gives me great insight that how Twitter and how Facebook and how these guys been able to attract 300 million, 400 million kind of users. And then what we do is we pick our kind of understanding. My live investing experience in this case has been when I came back and we started company in India. I was in PVR movie theater, and the PVR's market cap was, again, the price was about 139. The PVR movie tickets were 160, and the next door movie theater, the tickets were almost at 70, 80 rupees. And you could see that it's impossible to get tickets back in the day in 2011 for PVR, right? And the profitability, the way popcorns and the entertainment and everything, food, beverage has been sold to you. We invested at 139. We just exited PVR in a COVID era at 1,1500. So we've done good 7-8x in PVR. One thing I cannot put emphasize enough for all investors is there is no replacement for patience. It's an ultra marathon game. Sit through. Don't try to time the market. Don't try to get impatient. Don't try to get in, get out, and all that stuff. Then again, they understand how entrepreneurs and the new generation entrepreneurs are redefining. So focus on emerging ideas, industries, and products. I think that can give you a lot of insight. Again, what we were showing as a winners and losers, right? Chase winners instead of catching the falling knife. So don't try to say Yes Bank is a great investment. Don't say that Vodafone has come down to 9. Let me do this. You can keep that as a play money if you have to be like a gambler or a trader, but don't try to do this and then call yourself an investor. It's not an investor when you do this. It's a pure play money. There is nothing wrong being a gambler. There is nothing wrong being a trader. But that psychology and that thought process is very different. So you have to have that consumer investment psychology to play those falling knives. Our advice is, or what we've learned in India is, stick to winners and avoid these fallen knives. Again, what we've learned with the ITC, L&T, ABB, Cummins, and a lot of these other is that good company does not always mean it's a great investment. So look at investment in the perspective of financial statements and the growth stories rather than just a pedigree of the investment. What COVID taught us, economics is not investments. I think a lot of investors asked us the question in September and December, but GDP growth nahi hai, everything shut down, nothing works. I mean, this is not a real sustainable market. So our simple advice is that don't try to argue with the market. Do your asset allocation smartly. and try to use the volatility as your friend rather than your enemy. So luckily we have some good family office client. When the lockdown came and March came, we had the liquidity in hand. These clients really have seen a lot of cycle, and these clients really agreed. And we were lucky and smart enough to put money when the March crash came. A traditional retail clients, we were convincing these clients to stay with us. And a lot of clients right after June, as soon as the market recovered, they were ready to exit the market. And a lot of clients exited the market thinking that this was fake pullback and they will not sustain. Now we all know rest is the history. Market has given almost doubled from the bottom. So don't try to argue with that. And as we call it, only three things work in the investments: quality, quality, and quality. So don't try to replace the quality with anything, and just stick to the quality. And that takes us to the end. And that takes us to kind of this. So if you guys can, in a chat box, put the question, we can take it one by one. We have about 15 minutes on Q&A.
Hello.
Yeah.
Hello.
Yeah.
I have few questions. Can I ask?
Sure.
Yeah. You very nicely illustrated what happened in last one decade. It's really very useful. I have few questions. Like no one has anticipated in 2011 that Britannia will do wonder or Havells will do wonder, because at that time we have a Crompton also as an alternative to Havells, and even Voltas also, as you mentioned. But surprisingly, Havells and Britannia done wonder even along with this page industry. So can we anticipate like what sectors are emerging for the next decade of 21 to 30, or any sector specific theme which you currently under your study or evaluation?
Sure. Thanks for your question. So I think you're spot on. It's practically impossible for you to kind of shortlist that only this stock will do well. But you have to put method to madness, right? So what that means, you'll have to create certain criterias or certain screening methods that you adhere to. Because at any given point of time, let's say FMCG, as you mentioned it, there are at least 10, 15 investment opportunities. How do you decide as an investor what's the right one for me, or what I should do? So that is like being a cricketer, right? It's like a test cricket. Sehwag will not play the same outside off ball the way Dravid will play. So I can't exactly tell you what you should do. I can answer that question in my kind of the thought process, what I shall do or what I will do. And that doesn't have to be the right answer. That has to be my answer. What I've learned in India is that you have to keep an eye on the growth. Look at now the sectors like cloud computing. Look at the sectors like driverless cars. Look at the new technology, the consumer tech, the fintech. So something like Tata Elxsi, something like Apple. So when we run the screening now, right, the same metrics that I showed, which Britannia would have matched, which Bajaj Finserv would have matched back then, but ITC wouldn't have matched. Crompton wouldn't have matched because Crompton had a EPC, which was a loss-making segment. So the way to identify losers compared to winners or separate them out is completely not to keep an eye on the price, but keep an eye on the revenue and the profitability and the new product launch in the market. That will really help you, because Britannia, the profits and book values were growing at 30%, but ITC wasn't. So ITC's growth rate for last 10 years is somewhere about 8-9%. So markets eventually will follow winners, right? Markets will give more premium to kind of winners compared to the losers. Syntex was in plastic. Syntex had more plastic products than Astral Poly had. The Syntex market cap was 6,000 crore 10 years back, and Astral Poly was 300 crore. It was impossible for you to understand what they'll achieve. But if your financial metrics and if your thought process and your reading allowed you, if you entered that sector or that equity, what our understanding says, stick with them. Don't try to time it. Hope that kind of briefly answers your question.
Thank you, sir. We have one more question from the chat box. Shall I read it out, sir?
Sure, that'd be great.
Yeah. So with stocks like Britannia already have gained 50% premium brand market share, sir. So would it still remain that attractive? I mean, the headroom for more market share gains would be limited, right? And not speaking specifically for Britannia, but does it make sense to buy market leaders with market share which are greater than 50, 60% or 70%, sir? Your views on
Super.
that.
Perfect question, right? So I would like to use another global company example here and how that worked out. So think of Amazon. When Amazon got listed in 99, 2000, Amazon was competing with Barnes and Nobles. And Amazon's job was to send you kind of books, right? From that 2002-3, they entered into e-commerce. Now in 2007-8, if anybody would have told you that Amazon's primary revenue will come from cloud computing, or primary revenue will come from Amazon Prime or on a streaming services, I'm telling you that they're bluffing. It was impossible. So when you say Britannia, again, what you're looking at today is the premium brand market in the biscuit. The beauty of a good company or a good entrepreneur is that when they create massive cash flow, they will always find the opportunity to deploy that cash flow. I mean, look at Dhirubhai Ambani from Reliance being a typical textile company to backward integration today, and now with Reliance Jio, right? That if you tell me in 1977 when IPO came that Reliance will be, Jio will be, the largest market cap itself, kind of the company because of a telecom, not possible. So in Britannia, again, my thought process is that yes, it's a great investment. If I am holding it today, I would not exit it. The Britannia's next growth will come from the new segments like dairy industry. Now, dairy is dominated by Amul. Almost 50%, 60% of organized dairy market is with Amul. Now, if you look at high-end cheese, high-end paneer, chas, lassi, all that market, Britannia is capturing that market share beautifully. I don't know what happened, but I don't think it's impossible for Britannia to say after 10 years or 5 years that we're getting into packaged food industry. So these are platforms, right? Like Amazon, as I said, it's a platform. Once you reach a client, the platform can keep selling separate products. You're always sitting in that area is only looking at that one product that Britannia is selling. As an investor, you have to be romantically foolish and you have to understand that what this platform can create. So again, what I believe, something like Uber, people laugh at it saying Uber's loss-making company. Uber got listed at $40 billion, $50 billion market cap. What you not been able to understand is if Uber got a database. Now, if in 5 years, Uber knows everything in terms of what cabs you take from what point, Uber can easily become kind of a make my trip in terms of India sense or a price line in US sense. If Uber starts telling you that, sir, why are you not taking the flight ticket from us? And the app starts giving you pop-up saying, your 2,000 rupee kind of the flight ticket is available at 1,800. I can assure you it will capture 40-50% of the travel market. It can become also hotel aggregator because I already know where you travel. I already know what flights you take. I already know what cabs you take. So next generation of a decade will come from an aggregator like an ITC. It's a tobacco company. It has no reason to be in hotel. It has no reason to be in paper. It has no reason selling kind of a noodles to you or this to you. But once I create so much cash flow, once I understand the rural India market, it's subjective for me to create second tier product categories, right? So look at companies with that kind of the thought process, like in Plastic Supreme Industries today, which was one of our winners. Once I am in pipes, I can create even irrigation products. I can create packaging products. I can create infrastructure products. So the largest chemical company, Atul, today in India is less than $2-3 billion. I mean, what makes us think that these guys might not be in APIs, they will not diversify in pharmaceuticals, and they will go $40-50 billion. So I think that's how you have to think, or that's how actually, at least we think at Pi Square. So I
Thank you,
next,
sir. Yeah, the next question is about, can you give some insights for Syntex Industries and Syntex Plastics both? We know that it's a mistake to have entered there, but what to do now? As there have been some investors showing interest to buy them out. What could be the watching out points in this case, sir?
So I think it's really tough. I think it's like asking me that I'm going to Goa this weekend and I'm going to play roulette. What number should I bet on? So I think there are too many companies in India in that category. Maybe there is Vodafone, there is Reliance Naval, there is Reliance Capital. I am not a big advocate of these companies. I think you're much better off, unless you want to take your BP high and you don't want to take cholesterol problem, avoid these investments. Yes Bank and all these can go up. Maybe maybe I would say create, if your 100 rupees is into market, create 5%, 10% allocation where you're putting into these turnaround stories, and then split it between these 5 or 10 stories. That where you're saying that, I'll put 2 rupees or 2% into each of these 5 turnaround stories, and one of them will go multi-bagger. But my experience of last 20 years, call it Reliance, call it, the Anil Ambani side of the Reliance, call it the Jet Airways, call it the Kingfisher Airways. I have rarely seized that if out of 10 stories you picked that, 5 stories have turned around. So your chances, when your chances of failure is 90%, I don't think you want to bet, right? It's like saying that jump from the 70th floor and I'll give you $1 million. But if I tell you jump it from the second floor and I'll give you $100,000, you know what to do, right? My vote would be pick the safety and then avoid the failure.
Thank you, sir. I think we have less time, but I will take only the last question for the evening. I'm new, like one of the participants is mentioning that he is new to the investment sector. So which are the good sources for research, like any website or any other sources from where the person can get how new updates of the company, like what they are going to do in the future? For example, Britannia is entering into the dairy market, something like that.
Sure. So I think there is no, in investment, as we said, there is no kind of replacement even today in tech world. I think new generation investors or a lot of people feel that just creating Excel sheet models or just creating certain metrics, you understand the company well. Even I can tell you, or I think if you attend Berkshire Hathaway AGM, thankfully it's online also now, even Warren Buffett will tell you that there is no replacement to hard work and reading. So the good source for the research or the website, I would say, is read newspapers, all 4 or 5 newspapers a day. I love one of my boss, John Martin, had mentioned back in the New York days, that when New York Times and Boston Globe and all these newspapers used to come to us, used to tell us that, in $3, the copy of that newspaper was $3. He's saying there are 150 analysts are hired in $3. Why would you not use it? So I would say the same thing, that if you're reading 3-4 newspapers or the journals, right? There is a Capital Research, there is Dalal Journal, there is a Business World. I love reading Economist. I would say in the world, there is one of the best reading is Economist. See, these online, I'm not an online reader, but I still read physical copies. So these changes your perspective, right? As an investor, the job for us to change the perception and understand what things are happening around you in the world. In US, there is SPACs happening, which is SPAC, Special Purpose Acquisition Companies. In India, nobody has heard about them. But I can tell you that trend will follow in India in 5 years. Like what happened in e-commerce, the 99 bubble in US is what we're following now in 2020. So I would say read this well-known kind of the thing. Mint is one of the best newspapers that I think in India that I prefer reading every day from front page to last page. Practically, there is not a good article that I like to miss out. The Business Standard, the Economic Times, the Financial Express, these are like a common culprits, but there are a lot of good magazines, right? Business magazines. I would just stick to them and read a lot of books. The Market Cycle, by Howard Marks. There are tons of books. I think the Psychology for Money that I'm reading right now, which is Morgan Housel, phenomenal book. I would say I would advise every investor pick up that book and read front page to last page. There are also blogs and YouTube videos by Morgan Housel, who's a great speaker and a writer. I really enjoy. And Warren Buffett's annual letters, for us, it's a Bible. I think what he's written over a period of last 60, 70 years, the thought process of that guy is just, investment can't get simpler than that, what he writes, right? He might have underperformed for the last 10 years, but the kind of knowledge he's created is just unprecedented. So I've been fortunate enough to attend his AGM 3 years back in Omaha. And it's like going to rock festival for a business community. So I highly advise that anybody ever gets a chance to be in Omaha in May or June month during the AGM, just go and attend it. It's just best experience of your life.
Thank you. Thank you very much, sir. There are many questions popping up, being Gujarat investment people capital. So, but we have paucity of time, so we will not be able to take all the questions. but I think sir had already shared his contact details on the last
Yes.
slide also. So any further questions, you can send it to AMA or directly to Vishrut sir, and I think Vishrut sir will be more than happy to share his views on the questions.
Always, always. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for hosting us.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Thank you very much, Vishrut sir. And thank you, Pathak, Chandramouli Pathak, sir, for introducing you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. And on behalf of entire team of AMA, I thank you very much. And all the participants, thank you very much for being so attentive and shooting out the right questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Sir, good night. I
Good
love
night.
it. Thank you.
Good luck.
Bye.
Thanks.
Yeah, participants, thank you. See you in the next webinar. Take care. Good night.